One of the poster boys of the PS1, Spyro the Dragon is loved by a lot of people, young and old. Though in my case growing up, I definitely knew the name, but didn't actually play the game. I was more of a Crash Bandicoot guy, and it never crossed my mind to try Spyro out, which is a bit strange because I was more than familiar with Spyro's original developer Insomniac, being a fan of Ratchet & Clank as well as being a fan of dragons overall. I did play Spyro 2 at a friend's house back in 2005, but that was only for like half an hour. It wasn't until 2012 when I decided to give the series a shot. I got Spyro 3 first because I heard people say it was the best of the trilogy, and fittingly I downloaded it in the actual Year of the Dragon. Unfortunately, within the first 5 minutes, the game's camera made me motion sick. First time I ever felt that way playing a game, and I didn't want to play any further, so I didn't go back to it for years. Over time, I kept thinking about getting back into the series again, listening to snippets of Spyro music and hearing people go on about wanting the trilogy to get remastered like Crash did. There's a certain fellow in particular you may know of who's absolutely crazy for Spyro, a friend of mine since high school actually, and he also made me anxious to play them. Eventually, when the Reignited trilogy was announced, I went, okay, now is the time to give Spyro another chance. I got another quick preview playing the Spyro 2 demo in Crash Team Racing, then started my journey proper September 30th, 2018 with Spyro 1 and finished up Spyro 3 just days before the remaster's release. And not long after that, I went into Reignited. Quite the plunge, but now that I've played these games, and am currently going through the originals again with my brother playing them for the first time, I wanted to talk about them and just share my general thoughts. I won't be covering everything these games have to offer, just the things that stood out the most to me. The good, the bad, and whatever else I can think of. So let's do things right and talk about Spyro 1 first. Though the later games improve on pretty much all aspects, there's still a lot to love about this one. I personally enjoy the simplicity of just going into a level, scorching baddies, and collecting stuff. Even though gems don't do much in the grand scheme of things, it just feels good to collect them. The fact they come in a variety of colors with different values adds to the fun of grabbing as much as you can. I got this rush of excitement finding yellow gems among the smaller stuff, and coming across my first purple gem made me go, ooh. And it's great when you break open a crate and a bunch of gems just fly out with a satisfying noise, you know the one. When ramming through enemies and breaking stuff, the gems rack up and you get this sense of, let's keep this going, let's keep it up. And when you're near the end of a stage, there's nothing better than seeing the gem counter slowly make its way to the stage total, like, wait for it, yeah, there we go. Or on the flip side, it stops just a few gems shy and you scramble to find the last 5 to make that score perfect. For other collectibles, I thought the egg thieves were going to be a pain in the neck, but they were fun to go after too. And you really want to because you can hear them taunting you from a mile away and you just want to shut them up. I'll gladly go for 100% completion in a game if it doesn't drive me up the wall, and in Spyro 1 it's very easy to do so. And the bonus for completing the game is just enough to warrant it. An extra level where you get to fly around and grab gems to your heart's content. Seriously, when I first got to Nasty's loot, I had the biggest smile on my face, and getting all those purple gems in his home base, I felt like a kid in a candy store. It's the simplest thing, but I love it. I think now would be a good time to bring up the music of Spyro. It's really unlike anything I've heard from a game before, and if I had to describe it, I'd call it super funky ambience. Though the whole trilogy is full of greats, Spyro 1 soundtrack is my overall favorite. The best tracks are the ones that start out a bit slow and then build up to this explosion of different layers of stuff. The Dreamweaver's theme had me go, holy crap, what is going on with this music? This is magical! And going back to Nasty's loot, I was bouncing along with that bombastic music. I could listen to that for hours. Fun little side story, I recently visited a teacher of mine from middle school and we got onto the topic of games and Spyro came up. And she said, oh yeah, I know Spyro, my partner plays the soundtrack from that game all the time. And I thought that was awesome, that's some great taste in music. Spyro 1 left a real solid impression on me. Started out a little shaky, but by the end I had a lot of fun and was more than ready to check out the sequel. Ripto's Rage is not only a better game, but everything that a good sequel should be. Most everything people like about this series has its roots here, and it's got a much more engaging story with a memorable cast of characters. I say that's one of the game's greatest strengths because I had no prior knowledge to these guys, but I loved each and every one of them in no time. Some of my personal favorites include Moneybags, who's delightfully despicable, and Hunter is like that cool uncle of yours who's just a natural goofball. Spyro himself has a change up to his personality, and and while I found some charm to his young snarkiness in the first game, he's a lot more humble and level-headed from here on out, and coupled with his voice performance, he just sounds naturally cool. And it's no wonder people love Ripto. He has all the makings of a classic villain, the kind of guy you love to hate with a presence that's felt throughout the game, though I'm not entirely sure what he's supposed to be. The guy goes on about how much he hates dragons, but he looks like a dragon himself. This charm gets extended to the NPCs, who are all great fun to talk to, and I love the added detail of each level having an intro and end cutscene just to add a little extra life into the game. The bosses were handled so much better here too. Though Spyro 1's bosses had some cool designs, they were all a bunch of pushovers. Spyro 2 only has 3 bosses, but it's a perfect case of quality over quantity, and the final fight with Ripto is textbook final boss material. It keeps the player on their toes because the orbs Hunter drops for you can also be picked up by Ripto, so there was a real urgency to strike first before he got the chance to. I also like the added touch of being able to replenish your health during the fights themselves. I love it when games do that. And you know, as a fan of Ratchet & Clank, I noticed a few things throughout Spyro 2 that retroactively reminded me of that series. I was surprised to find out skill points first became a thing here. Robo-Gulp really looked like something out of the early Ratchet games, and these frogs use the same soundbite as the frogs on Velden in Ratchet 1. Seriously, take a listen. Also, Elora's voice actor would voice Courtney Gears in Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal. That cannot be a coincidence, can it? But anyway, Spyro 2, great stuff. Now, going into Year of the Dragon, I heard people were a bit split on it. Its reception reminds me a lot of the third game in the Sly Cooper trilogy, and the two games have quite a bit in common with how they're structured. Though the core gameplay is still the same, it adds a bunch of new stuff into the mix, like new playable characters and mini-games. Some Sly fans will tell you all the extra stuff bloated the game and tend to prefer Sly 2 because of that, though I personally like the third game just as much as the second. Going back to Spyro, while I do feel Ripto's Rage is better, Year of the Dragon still has a lot of great stuff going for it. For one, the main gameplay feels like it's been perfected, and I think Spyro controls the best here. And the recurring speedway levels, they are so much more respectful of your time, telling you the easiest way to beat them up front, and I had a lot more fun with these ones. Skateboarding was also pretty fun. I've hardly touched a Tony Hawk game, but I found myself actively trying to beat the course records, doing any weird combinations I could think of to rack up the points. The different modes with Spyro's friends were more hit and miss, but even if I didn't like a certain segment, I still like all the characters themselves. Bentley and Agent 9 are some of my favorites. Spyro 3 also has really good dialogue, and most of the time when you're given a yes or no option, it's usually written as something clever relating to the level you're in. Like when you're talking to Moneybags, for instance, there's a yes or no option, and I always chose no first because I wanted to hear what he had to say. It was always something hilarious. There's also a level where everybody talks in haiku, which I thought was super charming. And when I got to the ice skating challenge in Icy Peak, oh man, did that segment have me laughing. When I think back to the best parts of Spyro 3, the dialogue and humor is a real standout. There are some areas where the game takes a step back in presentation though. No cutscenes to introduce you to a level like Spyro 2, and the sorceress, she's okay for a main villain, but she doesn't hold a candle to Ripto. But what really ticked me off was the fact this game is technically not a complete package. If you know Spyro, you'll know the greatest hits version of Spyro 3 sort of acts like a physical patch to the original, fixing some bugs and adding new music in places that reused other tracks in the game. This includes a final boss theme for the sorceress, which originally used the Sunrise Spring Overworld theme. Like, wow, going out with a real bang there. And for some reason, the PSN version of Spyro 3 is the original version, and I learned that the hard way. The original game has a bug where if you leave a speedway level without beating all its challenges in one go, it won't grant you the egg, rendering the game impossible to 100%. I'll tell ya, if some of the mini games weren't getting on my nerves, that just made me go, screw it. I completed the first 2 games 100%, but I felt there was no need to try and complete the third. I did pick up the greatest hits version not too long ago though, so I guess I could give it another shot when I get around to it. All issues aside, I still enjoyed Spyro 3 and felt really good about the trilogy as a whole. So good that I didn't hesitate going into the remake a few weeks later. All 3 titles have never looked better, but the first game's the most impressive in terms of the remaster treatment. Every dragon you rescue has a design unique to the world they inhabit, and I loved each and every one. The barren landscapes of the original have all gotten a huge facelift too. Beastmakers was practically empty before, and now it's got huge swamp trees, hog statues, glowing mushrooms. Good lord, it's beautiful. Oh, and skill points were added here too. A nice nice touch. I think I like Spyro 1 more than others, and this remake puts it on near equal footing with the sequels. The third game also got a fair amount of updates, from using the greatest hit soundtrack and fixing up the 100% ending to make some kind of sense. And coming out of it, I liked Spyro 3 more than I originally did. The second game didn't have much wrong with it to begin with, so I think it benefited the least here. But there's still the little things for all three games, like a mini-map, warping to whatever level you want from the pause screen, and Sparks being able to pinpoint gems with the push of a button. That made going for 100% again oh so smooth. And speaking of smooth, I heard so much stuff about Reignited's use of motion blur and how it was so bad it gave people motion sickness. I know it's gonna sound weird given what I said about Spyro earlier, but I experienced no such thing and actually prefer having it on. I think the game looks better with it, but it's nice you can turn it off if you don't like it. One thing I am mixed on is the new soundtrack. Overall, I think the original tracks just stood out more, but I will say there were some good updates to a lot of tracks. Plus, I liked how the tempo changed up whether you were running or at a standstill. When it came to character changes, it was a little more hit and miss. I like the updates to some characters like Alora and Moneybags, though I have to say that while I don't hate what they did with Hunter, I still prefer the original. I think the NPCs had a lot more charm in the original games though. Something was lost when they made the jump to Reignited. For example, these penguin guys in Spyro 3 all talk like shady criminals, and it's really funny just hearing that breathy voice come out of them.
I challenged a Rhinoc to a traditional game of cat hockey, but I think I sprained my flipper during training. Would you mind taking my place?
Reignited completely drops this, and it's just kinda boring.
I challenged a Rhinoc to a traditional game of cat hockey, but I think I sprained my flipper while training. Would you mind taking my place?
And I'm sure you've heard this remake can be a wee bit unstable at times. Toys for Bob were on a real time crunch here. Aside from the game getting delayed, Spyro 3 was handled by a whole nother team. And I mean, I love Sanzaru, they made my favorite Sly game, but I've never heard of a remaster being handled quite like this. I bet it had to do with the fact the Insane trilogy came out and did super well, and the higher ups at Activision went, alright, we gotta get this Spyro stuff out like now, go, go, go! The polish in Spyro 1 starts to wear off in the sequels, and when you get to the third game, you really start to see through the cracks. I know I said how much more I liked Spyro 3 with the remake, but I can't deny it was a glitch fest. I couldn't get all the gems in Fireworks Factory the first time because Sparks stopped working, serious frame rate drops happened in one of the skateboard races, Bartholomew just popped out of existence, etc. When getting footage, I grabbed a lone gem right here, but I already collected everything, so my endgame total is now 20,005 gems. Great! And I haven't seen anyone else talk about this, but in the intro for Spyro 2, there's a part where Ripto yells, and when they cut back to him, they just reverse the yell. I have no idea why they did that, but it irks me. So even though this could have used some more development time, Reignited is still a great remaster with a clear sense of love and effort, though I struggle to say it's the absolute definitive way to play the Spyro games. I say there's reasons to go back to the originals because I think there are some things they do better, whether it's certain character portrayals, voice acting choices, or what have you. I mean, I still beat each game in the remake front to back and even nabbed the Platinum trophy, so clearly I liked them fine enough. If you have yet to try Spyro and don't know where to start, really do it however you want, but if you were to ask me, start with the originals and then do the remakes. It'll give you a better appreciation for the PS1 games and the effort the remakes put into, well, remaking them. For someone who has no nostalgia for the series, Spyro left a lasting impression, and I see myself coming back to these games a lot in the future. Though I don't really feel like trying out any of the other Spyro games because from what I've heard, they're probably not worth my time. Something, Enter the Dragonfly. But I hope an all-new Spyro game isn't too far off, and if it just sticks to what works and what's fun, I think we'll be good. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video, everybody. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed what you saw, feel free to give this video a like, share with a friend, subscribe, check out my social media pages, my Patreon page, blah blah blah, all that good stuff that I never stop going on about. And let me know, what's your favorite Spyro game? Are you more a fan of the original games or the Reignited trilogy? Sound off in the comments below. And while you're here, feel free to check out some of the videos I got on screen right here. I really enjoyed making them, hopefully you guys will enjoy watching them. And with all that said, I will see you guys next time. Later.